My name is Corinna and I was once homeless. I really believe when people think of the word homeless, the picture that they get is dirty, drug addict, criminal, and a nuisance to society. I did not grow up homeless. I actually had a good upbringing. I had my mom, who was a single mom, and with two other siblings in the home. And so we had your average all-American growing up. My mom worked all the time so that she can provide for us. And so it was a good upbringing, but there was still so much emptiness inside of me because I didn't have the father figure in your average home, you know? And so actually my great-grandfather that helped raise me along with my great-grandmother, when he passed away when I was about 12, 13 years old, was when that emptiness really took place inside of me. And as I went through my teenage years, which we all know can be really hard, trying to understand yourself, you're growing and everything, it was really hard for me to navigate that and really understand that. And so then I started hanging around a lot of children my age that didn't have your mom and dad in the home, that were kind of per se in the ghetto of the city that I grew up in, and they really embraced me as family. And with that, I just began this lifestyle of hanging around gang members and that lifestyle, and to where I then was making some wrong choices to where I had to go and move out of town to go live with my father, who unfortunately didn't even know how to be a dad. And so I kind of did whatever I wanted, and didn't have a structure, didn't have stability, didn't have somebody parenting me the way I needed to be parented. And so I started drinking to the place where one night that will always be imprinted in my heart is that one night I went out with some friends, and we were drinking, 15 years old, and that night was the night that I know I blacked out and I woke up and I no longer had my innocence as a little girl. And so that was kind of the beginning to a numbing stage, and not knowing how to deal with it, not knowing how to cope with it, but to just kind of stuff it down inside of me. And so I moved back with my mom, and where stability still it came back, because even though she was a very, very hardworking mom, my mom was all about morals, you know, and doing things right in the right way so that good things can come to you and good things can happen. And so these morals started coming back little by little. And I found myself my senior year, I actually had a boyfriend at the time, and I got pregnant. And so I chose to keep my daughter, and I graduated high school, and then I moved in with him. And so when I moved in with him, becoming a first-time mom, I had just turned 18 years old. I really didn't know and wasn't prepared to be a mom and to be a fiance at that time, and to really embrace this and embody it and the beauty of it. I started using meth. And so with meth comes the whole lifestyle. You know, I would lie. I would say I was somewhere when I really wasn't somewhere, just so that I can get high. And my daughter's dad at the time, he was doing everything that he was supposed to, that he knew, him being only 18 years old too, he was going to work, every single day, because I have this fiance and I have this little girl and this is what I'm supposed to do. And so he did an amazing job at that. But because of the hurts and all of the scars and the traumas growing up, those things really started to come out. I couldn't no longer push them in. And in that place is where I started to use heavily, because then as I was using, this numbing came upon. And so it was this back and forth, And so I said, I can no longer be with you, because I couldn't do it every single day, living this secret life. And it was really, really hard. And so I left him and I moved in with my dad. And when I moved in with my dad, it was, once again, really no responsibility, no accountability. And so I really started going out, to the point where my dad then said, okay, you're not doing this under my roof. And then began the journey of me leaving and becoming homeless on the streets of Madera. Homelessness really looks like many things. I would say, I know that not many people would describe homelessness as a diamond, but in so many ways it is, because there's so many facets to being homeless. For instance, in my case, homeless was, I first started out, when I first became homeless, in a vehicle. And so the people that I was hanging out with, that I was using with, it was, okay, we're going to go use and we're going to go to this person's house. And then after we're done using there, it's okay, well, we're going to go and do this criminal activity. And while we're out there doing this criminal activity, we're going to stay here. And then it's like it's just, it's an endless circle of kind of like chasing your tail, because you're not really going anywhere. You're not getting nothing done. And so, I lost my vehicle, and so then it began to be kind of house surfing, from one house to the next house to the next house to the next house. And so it was like, I would even have some belongings. Sometimes I would have my shampoo and lotion at this person's house. Sometimes I'd have my backpack at this person's house, and so on and so forth, to the point where it's within the addiction world, everybody's always trying to get over the next person, right? Stealing your belongings, the lies, the deception, and everything that comes with it, to the point where then I started keeping my belongings in an alleyway, hidden in a bush. And so that's where kind of like home base was for me. And if I needed to stay outside somewhere, I would stay outside somewhere. Sometimes I'll never forget, one time I even slept in a U-Haul truck, but not in the cab part, in the metal box part. And it was a really cold night, and I just had my clothes, and it was a tin box. So it was like all of the coldness came, and many, many nights on the streets, wherever I could find somewhere to sleep. And not only during the nighttime, but even during the day as well. The mindset of somebody who's homeless, it really is a one step away from mental health completely going blank and completely going gone. So you'll see somebody walking down the street who, can't even control their bodily functions, can't sense whether they're going straight or they're going backwards, or they're fighting the air, whatever that looks like, to somebody who's just walking down the street looking completely blank. It just doesn't happen overnight. There's definitely a process. Sometimes addiction will have a lot to do with that. But for instance, in my case, it was two major factors that had to do with that. There was, yes, definitely the addiction that was inside of that, but then there was also a lost, traumatized, abandoned little girl as well. And so it's like you get these two lost worlds that feed within each other, and you get a mix of kind of like a mental health clicking off. And then once the click is off, it's like, how do you even return from this place? So it's somebody who's dealing with mental health due to traumas are trying to suppress the traumas with the addiction, right? So when somebody kind of has a cold, they're sneezing, they have a runny nose and all of, the symptoms, but inside it's because there is an infection inside of them. And so, what I dealt with was a mix of the two, and really fighting this battle with inside of me, and along the years that I was homeless, I gained a total of 4 children. And so when I would get pregnant, I would stop using, have the child, but because the inside of me was so hurt, I would just go back to it. But I did have enough sense in my mind to say, I'm pregnant, I have to do what's best for the child, but I am gonna use as soon as I have this child. And that was the mindset that I had. And so it was, when I had the child, then they would go with either family members. And so the feeling of losing a child with the traumas that I had gone through and that I had put myself as well, all of those, it was like, I no longer deserve to live. I no longer deserve to have this dream of a family and a home anymore. One of the things that I would do to cover up the shame of being unsheltered was my appearance. And so even I get what I look like right now, but even in addiction, even in homelessness, I really prided myself on how I looked, that I would never look like I was homeless. And I didn't want ever anybody to know that I was homeless because of the shame of just the persona of what a homeless person is. And even though I certainly was those things, I was a criminal, I was a drug addict, I was mentally unstable, but I didn't want anybody to know that. So how I looked was I kept myself together so that nobody would ever put me in the same category as being homeless. And so I really thrived on that. And so that I wouldn't be treated differently. I wouldn't be sought that, because I've seen people unsheltered and were dirty from head to toe and have scabs all over them and things like that. And I've seen how they were treated even when they walk into the grocery store to even get a bag of chips, And so it was just a way of hiding and numbing again in that place. The 2 models of how to help a homeless person, right? One is taking a homeless person right off the street and putting them in a home, whether it be a brand new home or whatever the place may be, is putting them straight into housing and then letting the healing take place, which is, I understand that mindset and where the goal is. which is, let's show them what it is to live. Let's show them this is what you can have. This is what it is to be stable. And to give them a physical view of how it is to live. And then there is, okay, let's work on the inside of somebody first. Let's go ahead and help heal them physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to prep them to put them in a home. I get the vision and the execution of both of those. Personally, my views on it are, I would want to say, is 50-50. And I'll tell you why. Is because you get somebody off of the streets, right, that says, please, I need help. I can't do another day on the streets. I won't live anymore. I can't do it. And that is the place where it's like, let's move now, because you won't get that opportunity again. And so it's really that, I feel, is definitely a faith move to the maximum, because it's taking that person and saying, okay, let's show them how to live. It's one by one, walking with them and working with them and holding their hand through life, because nobody held their hand and nobody showed them step by step and really seen somebody and said, okay, I see what you're going through. I see you. I hear you. Now let's do this together. And it's really on a case-by-case basis. You can't really make some rules and then say, here's these rules. You in your brokenness and your trauma and all of the muck and the mire of your life that you have been through, and here, let's go ahead and format you to these processes and procedures. It doesn't work that way, because we have to live life on life's terms. So sometimes that can work, and sometimes it's, you know what, okay, I see it in you. You have the willingness, you have the wantingness. Let's go ahead, let's put a plan together, and this is the goal, and let's work to the goal. So that way it's like, man, when a college student, they're working for their masters, right? They have to take this class and this class and this class and this class to get to their goal. There's a process. And when somebody goes through the process and they make it to the goal, it's that much sweeter. And so it's really taking somebody, looking at them, really understanding where they came from, where they're wanting to go, and where they're at, and working with them how to get to that successful place. Personally, what I needed is someone to really mother and father me. That is what my soul cried out for. Like I explained, my mom was always at work. My father did the best that he could do with what he had. But I really needed somebody to truly mother and father me, discipline me when I needed discipline, guide me, and teach me how to do life by saying, okay, this is how we deal with it. And let's also deal with your traumas. Find healing in those places and not stay there, but move forward. Because sometimes what I kept doing in my brokenness was looking at all of everything that I'd done with such shame, such condemnation, and just staying stuck in that place. But getting the true healing that I needed to look back at that place and say, that place was traumatic, it was hurtful, but this is the place that I'm going to, and this can no longer reside where I'm going, but let this be the launching place of where I'm gonna need to, kind of like a catapulting back to shoot me to my destiny, and really understand that the things that were supposed to kill me, the things that were supposed to keep me trapped and just really imprisoned, will be the very things that I will then have authority in, and that I will walk in, and I will also help people get set free in those places. And really understanding that even though, yes, it was me having to face these things, but it was for also somebody else, to help somebody else be set free. And so that's what I kept on the forefront of my mind, is that there is another Corinna out there, and this Corinna needs to get healed and whole so I can stand in the authority that I always was meant to stand in, so that I could help set the next Corinna free. This is the woman that I used to be. This woman, somebody actually asked me when I shared my testimony one time, they asked me if you could go back into time, you being who you are today, what would you look at her and say? And I said, well, I would say, you who are standing in that jail cell, this is not your destiny. You're going to make it through. There's going to be some hard days. And there's going to be some days you're not going to want to live. There's going to be some days you're going to want to give up. But there is no victory without a battle. You can't win a war unless you go to war. And you're going to make it out. And not only are you going to make it out for you, but you're going to make it out for your children, that your children will never, ever experience what you went through. And there is a generation after you that will never go through what you went through, because you chose to fight your way through it. The danger in judging somebody in their snapshot of life, I feel like it's very prideful. And pride does come before a tremendous fall. And pride looks like so many different things, but the root of pride is self, I think when you judge somebody, you're putting up a mirror to them, when in reality, that mirror should be facing you. And no matter what it looks like, is you should always have a mirror in front of you to say, who am I to judge somebody where they are at in their life? But better yet, how can I help them? No matter whether it's getting involved in a community, no matter if it's getting involved in an organization, or sometimes it looks like a simple, hey, how are you doing? Even if they don't want to talk to you, that's okay. But you're saying, I see you, I hear you. And sometimes that's just what they need, is they just want to be heard. Even if they don't make sense, you're hearing them. And there's so much healing that comes from just listening to somebody. You don't need to always have an answers. I feel like that's the problem sometimes, is that we always feel like we have to have an answer. But sometimes we just need to be the ones to really humble ourselves and just listen. I really do believe, due to our economy and just everyday living today, where a gallon of milk is no longer 25 cents. But I really do believe in this because, like I share with my children, we've worked very hard, me and my husband, to get where we are today, to where my children, they're able to have an Xbox. They're able to have shoes and nice clothing. They're able to have a roof over their head. But I let them know, don't get it twisted. I share with them, we're one paycheck away from losing everything. Everything. May we always stay in a place of humbleness. May we always stay in a place where we are grateful, and may we always stay in a place of giving, no matter if that's giving the last dollar that we have, if it's giving a t-shirt, if it's giving some food. When we give, I feel like when you give, you're the most richest person, even though if your bank account looks at it or not, because when you have a heart of giving, that's a place of overflow. It really is. And it's saying, you know what? I'm going to give, and I'm going to give, and I'm going to give, whether it's my time, whether it's my heart, whether it's food, no matter where it is, may I stay in a place of giving so that I may always receive in a place of overflow. I think I went from a place of spending the night in the U-Haul truck and storing my belongings wherever it may be, to a place of gratitude, because I watched people that mothered and fathered me, and I watched them and how they moved and how they had a heart of loving, of giving, of truly giving everything that they had. And it's always been a teaching. I cannot truly say that I have a spiritual mother and a spiritual father that is just out of this world. And I've watched them for the last 8.5 years of my life give and give and give and give and give, into a place where they've even been persecuted. And I've seen these people. I've had conversations with my spiritual parents to where I've seen their conversations behind closed doors, and their hearts, even when people persecuted them, is still at a place where no matter who comes against us, we will not put ourselves in a place of offense. We will not put ourselves in a place where we will become prideful, but we are going to stay in a place where we will continue to give. We will continue to love, because love is the greatest weapon that we have, And so it was really watching and following, kind of like a child. A child will watch and soak in everything that their parent does and then reflect that. So I truly had people to teach me and walk alongside me so that I can learn to be who I was meant to be. Really and truly, what I've learned, how to be in relationship with somebody who is facing homelessness now, is truly meeting them where they're at. Truly, solely. Because even though there's always so much nice things to say, which is always, it's always a good thing to really relate to somebody, right? Like I mentioned, really see them, hear them where they're at. But sometimes words won't do justice. But I'll never forget in in a different city where we were reaching out to. There was a pregnant young lady. She just became pregnant. I believe she was just 19 years old, and her boyfriend at the time was still trying to figure out life himself, and he wasn't making the best choices himself, and she would get really frustrated with him. And on one very hot August day, in the middle of the day, she came in and she ran to the back parking lot, and she was just crying and crying. And I ran back there, and at that moment, it's, what do you say, But I didn't say anything. But what I did get was I got down on the floor on the very hot pavement. I will never forget the sting of the burning of the pavement under my legs. But I held her while she cried, and we were out there for, oh gosh, about a good 45, maybe close to an hour, and I just held her while she cried. And it's really meeting people where they're at, no matter where they're at, and I didn't have to say a word, but just holding her while she cried, that spoke volumes, So I think it's just really looking at a person, seeing where they're at, and really discerning that correctly, because I feel like that's very important too, that we would discern things correctly, because so many times people get judgment and discernment really twisted. And may we not judge people, but may we discern their situation so that we can bring them the truth. Here is a question that I'm still trying to figure out, which is a fully loaded question that, may I not contradict myself, that doesn't really have an answer, but I've had the question before, is so how do we solve homelessness? Well, I tell you, there's that phrase is, well, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you save a city? One soul at a time. It's reaching somebody. It took me 3 times to come back, go back, come back, go back, come back, go back, to really get it. But to really meet somebody and really understand them and really get to learn them. Again, not judge them, but to say, you know what? Can I take you out for ice cream? Can I get you a soda? Because that's how it starts, Then it turns into, hey, from can I get you a scoop of ice cream, to turning into, I'm gonna have you running a whole operation and taking over a city. So there's a journey in it. Everything is a journey. Life's a journey. My name's Corinna Swenson, and I am the operations manager at the Lodi Access Center here in Lodi, California. And what we're doing there, I pray that it would model not only for this city, not only for this county, not only for our state, but for a nation, that we would end homelessness one soul at a time.